Welcome back to the Jump Labs podcast, the show for founders who want growth without the guesswork. Here we're mixing data, AI, and real talk around the systems that drive predictable growth. And today we're diving into a business model that most founders never consider, a revenue share collective of fractional leaders. Stephanie Warlick has built a system around vetted executives sharing expertise, referring clients across industries, and growing together without the traditional payroll. Steph, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Jay. I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
Yeah, likewise. The pleasure's all mine, Steph. For someone meeting you for the first time, how do you explain the work you do as a fractional COO and now leader of a 50-person collective?
The best job in the world. That's the short answer. What my colleagues and I do are go into businesses of all sizes and help them grow and scale. We're usually taking the weight off the shoulders of owners. We're helping them where they have gaps in their staffing and really serving them in however they need.
Let's go back a little bit. What pushed you from corporate into entrepreneurship and eventually into the fractional world?
Yeah, so I actually had been in entrepreneurial family-owned business since as I was a kid, starting at like 14 years old. So I've always known that. I went into corporate from a small business with my husband because we just didn't feel after 2008, the economy, we did not feel secure having our eggs in one basket anymore. And I had the opportunity to join a client and vendor of mine who went into government contracting. He said, "Come on over. I need you to dot my I's and cross my T's. You're exactly what I need to help run my business." So it was sort of interesting that, looking way back, even though I was hired at that time as a full time employee, there was a leader who said, "I don't have someone to fill in this gap." And he created a role so that I could do all the catch all stuff that he didn't like to do and knew he couldn't do well. And so I was in government contracting for about 10 years. Then I went into software development and digital accessibility, and I learned a ton that actually helped me write my second book. And then after 12 years in corporate, I just felt empty. I was busy. I was working a ton, but I wasn't fulfilling that passion of mine, which is really to help businesses grow. And I decided to start 5 Foot View. I went out as a solopreneur. And after being a solopreneur for about a year and a half and giving away other work in the CFO world or the CMO world or compliance and legal, I was like, why am I giving away business? Like, I want to bring this business in and I want to build a team and pull all of us together because I do believe that individuals are stronger as a team than they are as a single person. And so I launched the collective this past summer.
Yeah, let's talk about that because that's a cool story in itself. Share about the post, share about the 125 applicants you had to screen through in a week. Share
Yeah.
some of that fun stuff.
Yeah, that's great. So when I decided that I didn't want to just serve 3 clients a month, right? Because that's really or a week, let's say. We work on a fractional, monthly basis, but if I'm working 10 or 15 hours for a client, I was back to working a lot. And what I wanna do is work for more clients in fewer hours. And so to gain that reach, my thought was twofold. One, there's a need for fractional services out there, and let's bring all the C suite together because I do think that the collaboration of a full C suite that knows and likes and trusts each other is really imperative for small and particularly medium sized businesses that don't have that. So I was able to have a further reach and we can have a further reach to the clients that are out there. So when I had this epiphany one night, God bless my husband who like just goes along with me for all my crazy ideas. He was like, "You're doing what?" He's actually over at my door now, just shaking his head like, "Oh yeah, I remember that day." I said, "Let's do this." I posted an ad on LinkedIn and I had 400 resumes in 20 hours. And I was like, "How do I find the stop button?" Because it was just rolling in. And because I am a human resources certified specialist as well, I really took great time and care to go through every single resume. I thought if these people are applying to me, then I really wanted to give it the due diligence that it needed. I went through all of them. And as I read great resumes, and there was one amazing resume and professional after the other, I was scheduling interviews. And it turns out that I interviewed 125 people over 3 weeks. Like at the end of every day, I had no voice, but I was just so amazed. I'm amazed. I don't even know what other word there is besides amazed right now, but the brilliance and the professionalism and the just super cool people that I met from all over the place just kept coming in, rolling in. So where I thought I was going to build a collective of 20 people, I ended up extending offers to over 50 people. And now we have about 50 in the collective. It didn't work for everybody. We do, as you said at the beginning, have a revenue share. So I work with each fractional and decide exactly what the contract's going to look like for the client, because the fractional executive really is the one that is directly servicing the end user client. I'm servicing the fractional, and I guess a little bit the end user client, but I provide the contracting, the marketing, and the accounting services for the fractionals, because many of them just want to service the clients. They don't want to run the business. And that's what I love to do.
Right. Yeah. So there's all the part where they're really good at one thing. It's kind of like the
Yeah,
E myth. The E myth. I don't know if you've heard it.
absolutely. It's one of my faves.
Yeah. So what the E myth is for anyone listening. The E myth is just because you're good at something doesn't mean you can automatically turn a business out of it. Entrepreneurship has so many different hats that you have to wear,
That's
and
right.
getting good at all these different hats, wearing these hats, all these processes that could take a lot of time and
Right.
a new skills, developing new skill sets. But
100%. It also goes with the cobbler's kids doesn't have shoes, right? So when you're busy doing that stuff, it's hard to do your own day to day business when you're doing it for others.
exactly. And then for the companies that are trying to scale, what's the common operational blind spot you're seeing, the gaps you're filling, of course, with the people you're working with?
Yeah, so I could answer that broadly and specifically. Specifically, the positions are CXO, CEO, all the CXOs, CMO, CTO, CFO. So anybody that's the executive C level. But really specifically, like in the heart of those leaders and founders, it's where is the person that I need to help me grow and scale? Like the owner is feeling this overwhelming burden of carrying the majority of the weight to grow the business, to mentor the younger folks, to have all the expertise in their head, often undocumented. And they're like, I need more. Or perhaps it's not just a capacity and bandwidth issue, but they have extended their knowledge of how to run the business to its full capacity, and they need someone else to take that to the next level. And so bringing in an expert that has been there and done that in their space, in that industry, that can walk in without being trained, without being walked through all the processes, can just say, yep, been there, done that, seen that, I got it, and just go. And the owner doesn't have to look back, is really the person that needs us.
And then you've also built this system where the expertise is shared across industries. That's a huge value add for the clients you're working with. What problem does that solve? Can you give an example?
I will say that or at least on the top of my head right now, what I will say is that sharing that knowledge from across all the industries and all the positions in the C-suite, and this is why it's also such an attractive model for the other solopreneurs, is that we have each other to bounce ideas off of, to say, hey, have you seen this problem in another space? And when these executives have seen these problems in all the other different spaces and companies and all different sizes and stages of the life cycle of a business, you have every one of those gems of wisdom to bring to the table to help the companies. And I think that's really the value, that there hasn't been a problem that we've seen come our way that we haven't been able to solve.
Right. With 50 intelligent people all working towards one goal,
Yeah.
it's inevitable, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what's the biggest challenge when you're working with a collective that size?
Worry about feeding all of them business. We work collaboratively. It's not like I've hired them and they're expecting me to give them work. We are a team. We do work as partners. So that's just a worry that I have, because I want to please them. And again, I do see them as my clients. So that is the challenge, I guess. Like any management role, sometimes it's wrangling cats. I say to them, I can't help you and market you if you don't give me your case studies or show me your information. And I get it. They're just busy servicing clients. It's no problem. But other than that, I guess, there's an inherent cost for me to bring them into all the SaaS products and things like that. So we do look for a return on the investment, like bringing in contracts to pay for those services. But otherwise, it's really just fun. There's really not many challenges.
Yeah, it sounds like you're having a great time. Come on this call with great energy. In our first call as well, we were vibing and seemed like you were very happy doing what you're doing. But
I love
what
it.
systems would make scaling the collective feel a lot easier in, let's say, the next 6 to 12 months? What systems might, if you could, I guess, poof, and then this thing is fixed, what would that system be doing?
Yeah, it's I have amazing partners that are making that proof system for me. They are creating an operational backbone for me that is all built on AI. So I'm completing my AI certification. I'm really excited about that. I think that's integral to all business consulting if you're going to be moving forward into the future. And I do plan on working for a bit longer. So I believe in human first AI that is implemented strategically to bring return on investment. And as a business leader, I will have a dashboard where my marketing tools, my accounting tools, and I say marketing, I mean my social outreach, but then there's the cold email, it's the intent based leads, it's the ad posting, it's my own GPT, custom GPT that understands my voice to help me with my writing. All of that integrated. It connects to my CRM tool. So that's the poof and it's happening right now.
Yeah, that's the holy grail with one system that holds all of the other systems.
Yep.
Right now, pretty much everyone is doing patchwork where they're integrating different tools. They're using N or they're using Zapier, Make, all of these integrative tools to have them all talk to one another. I will say there's a lot of promise for that. It's not done well in execution, at least not from what I've seen yet so far anyway.
I think what they've developed, we haven't. I guess we're in beta. You could call it. They're at the beginning stages, but I absolutely love what I've seen, and it's going to save me hours and hours a week. Again, as a business owner, just like the services that I provide as a fractional, where I'll say, okay, I know this company needs a CFO and they need a CMO. It's easier for them to have one contract and one invoice. I would rather have one source where I can bring in and integrate all of my service providers where I'm managing one service provider instead of several. I just don't have time for that as a small business owner. I'd rather be spending my time in thought leadership or speaking or whatever the case may be. So, everything I believe in continuous process improvement and the execution, if something is not perfect right now, AI is changing so quickly and automation is just it there's I mean, things are 100% better than they were even 3 months ago in some instances. So I can be patient with that. You just have to be agile enough to kind of keep up with those changes and the know that it's not going to be static for a while.
Exactly. Yeah. This is a dynamic space we're in right now. It's this big tidal wave or a tsunami maybe
Right.
that yeah, things are just going to develop at the speed of light. Let's
Yeah.
talk a little bit about maybe a little off topic, but your third book you mentioned feels like your life's work. Tell us a little
Yeah.
bit about that.
Yeah, thanks for asking. I love this. So, my third book title is tentatively planned to be Owner Mindset: How to Develop an Entrepreneurial Mindset at Every Stage of Your Life Cycle in the Workplace. So, I can attribute some of the credit to the concept behind this is stand in the gap to my former COO, Michelle. And when I was in one of the government contracting companies, what would happen was I'd be in a space. It was a lot of fun, but I'd be in a space and there would be some set of work or responsibilities that were not being completed by someone and it was affecting my output. So let's say we lost the Salesforce admin and I needed the data from the Salesforce tool to do my FP&A work, right? And so I said, well, in this particular, I'm using this as an example, but in this particular example, I was voluntold that I got the work. But we called it stand in the gap. And I would say, hey, I'm going to take that work because it's impacting, it needs to be done. No one's doing it or it's not being done well. Let me take that. And she'd say, Steph, if you're willing to stand in the gap, I've got your back all day long. And it dawned on me after a couple of years that that is what I did my whole career. I would stand in the gap. And ironically, I thought of this one day. I wrote a post. I was the rover in softball in junior high school. And my coach, who was my stepdad, he would just move me wherever I needed to be on the field that we needed because I was the fastest and could get to the ball before anybody else. And I think how ironic that was that this has been kind of a theme throughout my life that I'm kind of this rover and I get moved around wherever is needed. But she would say, stand in the gap and I've got your back. Because, in some organizations, people don't like when you get out of your swim lane and you do something that's not your responsibility. But I would stand in the gap. So I went from director of FP&A of one division to both divisions to then managing customer service and procurement to then managing the quality department to managing the warehouse to managing the Salesforce admin, right? So I kept getting these additional responsibilities. It was from the stand in the gap method. But the combination of the stand in the gap method with an owner mindset. I mentioned that I've been in small business or entrepreneurial environment since I was 14. I don't know how not to think like an owner. So when I would go into the corporate space, I felt like I owned everything. Like that's my job. That's my responsibility. And people would say, Steph, you don't have to worry about that. I got it. Or that, your boss will take care of that. And I'm like, no, I've got to fix it. There's a problem that needs to be solved and it's mine. And I would think 10 steps ahead or look to my boss and say, hey, are we tracking like to mitigate that risk and this? And have you seen this? And what about that? And all of those traits, those skills that I developed as an owner, um, I call the owner mindset. So what I'm doing is in the book, paring it down to distilling it to those key traits and behaviors that individuals have that they can exemplify in the workplace that really they're putting them in itself in the position of becoming indispensable because they can anticipate what the owner needs. One really good example that I give is, think about the person that is walking down a hall and you see like this crumpled piece of paper on the floor in the hall in front of you. And there's person A that walks past it and says, that's not my job. That's not my garbage, and just keeps walking. Or there's person B that picks it up and throws it away in the trash can that's right there. And they say, I'm going to pick that up because that piece of garbage, someone could trip on and get hurt. It's not supposed to be there. I take pride in my workplace. I don't want that. But that to me is a model of what the owner mindset is, that I'm going to just take care of it because I know that it needs to be taken care of. Right. And how people walk past it. That's the owner mindset.
Beautiful. Yeah, definitely take ownership. Yeah, that's good. I'm that kind of person where I will say like it has led to burnout
Yeah.
where it's like, you know what, I'm gonna handle this because I don't want to wait or because I don't want to burden them. I feel like I
Right.
absorb a little bit more responsibility than I need to
Yeah.
sometimes.
That
But
does happen. You're right, Jane. I'm sorry that that has happened to you, but I think a top performer does do that, right? A top performer takes on things for the better of the good, and it can lead to burnout. You do definitely need to have your controls. I will qualify one thing for all the people that are germaphobes out there because I am a germaphobe. I don't pick up garbage wherever I go. It is really just a metaphor. Gross, I'll be like, and I'll probably gag. But it is a metaphor about picking up that garbage. Garbage meaning, that crappy responsibility that nobody wants to do. Like, just get it done. Because and my perspective is every time I quote unquote pick up that garbage, I learn something. And I get to take that knowledge with me when I go to the next job or the next company. So why wouldn't I? It doesn't cost me anything, just that little extra effort, as long as you do manage the boundaries so you don't get burnt out. So it's a good point.
so what's a good way to know if a company should upgrade leadership without hiring someone full time? Because that's a question I'm sure people are asking. Should I hire
Yeah.
fractional? Should I have someone all on board all the time? Like what's the best way?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So, the first question at hand for a C suite executive is going to be cost, always. That's, can I afford this person? And so, of course, I'm biased, but I always think, why would I pay $250,000 for a person that I don't know if they're going to work out? I think they look great on paper. I have no idea if our personalities are going to mesh. It seems like through this interview process, we've all gotten along great. We wined and dined, and we have a common objective, but everybody can be on their best behavior for a few hours. Like, you really don't know until about 3 months in whether it's going to work or not. And then you might have a long-term employment contract. You might have, and for both sides, you might have competitive contractual agreements. You might have golden handcuffs. There's not to mention all the benefits that a C-suite person would cost, 4K matches and all of it. So the fractional executive allows executives at a reasonable cost to bring in someone, get the work done. And here's the thing, they don't get caught up in the day-to-day drama of the workplace because while they're there working elbow to elbow and side by side, they are outside. So they can kind of stay out of the fray of the workplace drama and politics and just get the work done and work for the executive. So man, I think it's the cost is the first thing. And then the second biggest challenge is, especially in a founder-led environment, is, can a founder let go and relinquish those key responsibilities to someone? That's really hard for some founders, but when a founder can recognize that they are often the bottleneck to the company growing to the next level, that's key, and that's the path to getting to where they need to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really well said. There's so many benefits to going the fractional way. You put it better than I could, but it made sense. It landed. So, Steph, where can people connect with you to learn more about the collective, or just touch base with you and learn more about how they can find some help?
Yeah, thank you. So 5 Foot View, the number 5ftView.com is our website. And we've got a really great digital catalog there of all of the experts where people can read their profiles and see the brands behind them and all the businesses that they've scaled. Great place to find us. And I put out a great post on LinkedIn today about what is the 5 Foot View. And it's a great description of really how we stand side by side in the weeds with leaders to get the work done.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Steph, for sharing a little bit of your journey, some of the stories from softball as playing the rover, which is an important role. And yes, thank you for sharing about the very unique and cool business model you have where you're connecting in the middle and really just helping people on both sides of the rope. So
Yeah.
if you want to connect with Steph, make sure to check out her website, 5 Foot View, and also reach out to her on LinkedIn. She's super active on that platform.
Yeah.
If you like more stories like this, be sure to tune in for more. My name is Jay. Thanks so much, and we'll talk soon.
Shay.